All right, hi guys, my name is Alexus. I am a PhD student studying Biological Oceanography in Hawaii, and today I'm going to be telling you how I'm studying for my PhD comprehensive exams. Okay, so there are 4 parts to this video. In the first, I'm going to be talking about what are comprehensive exams, 2, what is the purpose of them, 3, how am I studying, and lastly, some tips that I've received from professors and other people who have taken comprehensive exams. Okay, so what exactly are these comprehensive exams? PhD students typically have them. We refer to them as comps. And the format of this exam is like super variable depending on your program, school, and even your committee. And this is an exam that you have to pass in order to become a PhD candidate. And all this means is that you're a PhD student, right? When you begin, you pass this exam, which is kind of like a hurdle that you have to do in order to get your PhD. And once you pass it, you're considered a PhD candidate. In our oceanography program at UH Manoa, this typically happens at the end of your 3rd year. So like 2nd semester of your 3rd year, you'll be taking these comprehensive exams. So as I mentioned before, the formats of these exams are highly variable. But for mine, I have a 5-person committee that is made up of 3 biological oceanographers, 1 chemical oceanographer, and a physical oceanographer. And they each get 20 minutes each to ask me any questions that they would like. I think this 20 minutes kind of works its way out into 2 to 3 big questions with like smaller questions in each of those topics that they're going to ask you about. Then you get a break, followed by another 5 minutes of questions from each member, and then it's over. And you're also giving a like quick, I think 10-minute presentation about your PhD proposal or your prospectus, which will have been submitted about a month before this comprehensive exam date. And then I think they can even ask you a few questions on that presentation before getting into your actual exam. But yes, you are standing in front of the room at the whiteboard, presenting and then just taking like 3 hours of questions, which is super crazy and draining. So now that you know what my comprehensive structure is, I wanted to quickly go over the purpose of comprehensive exams and why do we need to like cross this hurdle in order to be a PhD candidate or someone that is able to get a PhD. So it's a very, very like high stress situation. You're going in, your committee can ask you any topics relevant to your research or course material that you've taken. So stuff you should know because your research is about it, or you should know because just any oceanographer should be able to answer this question. So they're really trying to test your knowledge. You know, they want to make sure you know the basics, everything that might be relevant to your research. They want to make sure that you don't have any like large gaps in your knowledge that are really, really important to understand in order to be a good PhD researcher in your program. And yeah, they're really just like testing your knowledge through an oral exam. And I think a lot of it is that they're trying to see how you do under pressure. Because a lot of these things they probably know that you know the answer to, but it's how well are you able to perform under pressure, answer it in a way that is like succinct but also satisfying to the rest of your committee. So a lot of people have told me that it really seems like just hazing, because even if you did a good job, you're not going to feel great after it. You're just going to feel like very exhausted, very drained. It was this high stress situation, and once you're done, it's like, wow, it's over. You're relieved, but also maybe like panicking that you're not going to pass while they're talking in the room. So yeah, they say it feels like hazing, but in reality, I've heard from professors that it's not really hazing because everyone there genuinely wants you to pass. They're there because they care about you. they're on your committee, they're supporting you, they really, really want you to pass these exams, but they also need to see how much you know, see where your strengths are, identify any areas that may be weaknesses to you. So let's say, you know the biology really well, but maybe you need a better understanding of the physical aspects that are relevant to your research. So yeah, they're there to see where your knowledge ends. They want you to pass. And this high stress situation is also there to just prepare you for future situations like this. So because you're a PhD student, you're writing a dissertation, eventually you'll need to stand up in a room in front of an audience, give a presentation, and defend your research. People are going to be asking you questions after your defense that you should be able to answer in a way that's satisfying. They want to see how you think on your toes. This is also relevant to if you're giving a presentation at a conference. Usually there's a Q&A period after. Some of the questions could be really difficult. It could be a stressful situation, so they're just trying to prepare you for stuff that you're going to encounter later. Even job talks and stuff like that, which could be a super high stress situation. All of this is meant to prepare you for your future as a PhD. And yeah, just sing if you have it in you. And I also heard that at least in the oceanography department at UH Manoa, that it's pretty rare that they fail people. I think they haven't failed anyone in the past like 10 years, which is really, really good. Makes me feel a little bit better going into it. And I think even if you feel like you did really, really bad and felt like you didn't pass because you didn't know enough about this topic, if anything, they'll pass you, but say like you should really TA a course on this because you need to strengthen your knowledge about this area. But yeah, so I've heard that they usually don't fail anyone. It could happen, and I think if you fail, you either have to like master out of the program where you're not allowed to get your PhD, but you have to do a master's instead, or they can fail you but give you a chance to retake it. And I think you only have 2 chances of taking this exam, so after that, you're like dismissed from the program, which is scary, like thinking that you could fail it. Even if it's unlikely, it's definitely something you want to have in the back of your mind while you're studying, because yeah, it's an important exam. Okay, so now I wanted to tell you a little bit about how I'm studying specifically for my exams. My comprehensive exam date is August 23rd. Today is July 5th, and I started studying for this exam July 1st, so beginning of this month, and my plan is to study for all of July, which is about 4 weeks, and then another week in August because I'm taking 2 weeks off at the beginning of August. I have 1 week in between, and then the following week is my comprehensive exam date. So about 4 to 5 weeks of studying, and they recommend 6 weeks of studying at least. Some people up to 3 months in advance. I do want to note that I was originally going to take these exams like potentially in April and May. So I had been like thinking about comprehensive exams since January, but I was also working on my PhD prospectus, which is like our proposal, which meant that I was doing a lot of reading and reviewing for that prospectus since January. And I was also studying with a friend of mine who took her comprehensive exams back in, I think, April or May. So I had been doing a little bit of reviewing and stuff, a lot of reading scientific literature around my area of research. So I am not too worried that I have less than 6 weeks right now to study for my comprehensive exams. I think I'll be okay, but you know, we'll see. And I'll let you know whether or not this was a good plan after my comprehensive exams. Okay, so before studying for my comps, I met with each member of my committee, all 5 of them, separately, to ask them topics that I should prepare for when studying for these comprehensive exams. So each of them gave me some topics. They had already read my PhD prospectus, or at least a pretty late draft of it, maybe not the final version, but they knew what my prospectus was about and what questions or topics they needed to ask me on this exam, or that may be relevant. And a lot of them basically gave me topics that were like what I was expecting, because they're directly related to my area of research, what I mentioned in my PhD prospectus, so all very fair game. They also gave me courses that I took that I should be prepared for. Also courses that I didn't take, like a 201 course, which is like an introduction to oceanography, just meaning that I have to be comfortable with that level of like detail for things like physical oceanography. That's not my area of expertise, but I do need to know the basics and the concepts behind all of it. I also asked them if they would recommend any books that would be really good for me to read while studying, or any specific papers that they think might help me when studying, or that they might pull questions from. So with all of that, I got some books that I need to read. So yeah, this is one of the books that I need to read. It is The Biology of the Deep Ocean. I haven't started it yet, but it's supposed to help me for the deep sea ecology portion of my exam. So one of my committee members identified a few chapters from this book, which is basically all of them with the exception of 2, that would be really helpful for me knowing going into my comprehensive exams. I also got 2 books that wasn't recommended by a committee member, but by another student that was taking comprehensive exams. And this one is about climate and the oceans. This other one is the global carbon cycle. So the reason that I got this climate and the ocean ones was mostly for like introductory physical oceanography, things like the structure of the ocean, flow of water, currents, fluid dynamics like hydrostatic balance and geostrophic balance and Ekman layers, things like that. This book does a really nice job of not only explaining the math and physics behind it, but telling it in a way that almost anyone, including me, can understand. Then I got this one on the global carbon cycle, because zooplankton, as you may not know, are like key links in food webs, because they link phytoplankton, the tiny things, to larger organisms like fish. So they're a key link in between the two. They also transport carbon and other nutrients like nitrogen from the surface of the waters to deeper in the water column through their daily vertical migrations. Really not that important to you, but they do contribute to the global carbon cycle. And a portion of my dissertation is estimating a portion of this global carbon cycle and basically quantifying how much zooplankton contribute to it in this area of the ocean during different seasons. So yeah, that's why it's really important that I understand the carbon cycle and how phytoplankton contribute to it, how zooplankton contribute to it, and why my research is important at the larger scale, at the global scale, and for things like climate change. Yeah, I also have a few papers that were recommended to me, I think about maybe like 6 papers or something like that. They didn't give me as many as I thought they would, which is kind of nice because I don't feel obligated to read like hundreds of papers or anything like that. But yeah, there are some scientific papers in there that I do need to study. Okay, so once I met with each person of my committee and had a list of topics that they wanted me to study, I took all of these topics, kind of looked at them all together and separated them into different categories. I'm doing this all on Notion because I love Notion. I do everything in Notion. So yeah, this is Notion. Right now I have my video notes on it, but I also have my study guide in here where I've added all of the topics from each person and put them into broader categories. So I think right now I have 9 categories. I don't know how set I am on them right now, but like one is oxygen minimum zones, deep sea mining, deep sea ecology, zooplankton, which is a huge category, phytoplankton and microplankton, because I have a person that studies like microbial scale things, so definitely gonna expect questions in this area. I have the global carbon cycle, physical oceanography, and how my area of the ocean compares to other regions of the oceans, and things like seasonal and spatial differences. That's a whole other category, also a very giant category. But yeah, I don't know how set I am on these 9 categories that I have right now, but it was a way to like organize all of these different topics and yeah, kind of put a structure to my studying. So rather than thinking of it as one topic from one person, I'm trying to make that one topic or question fit into other general areas that I should know from like a biological aspect, chemical, and physical aspect. So for example, if someone has a question that is very broad, like what is upwelling? I need to be able to know like what is it, what is the physical oceanography behind it, how does this affect things like nutrients, water, like mixing, and what effects does it have on the biology of all of it. Trying to think like that, trying to put a biological, chemical, and physical lens on every question. And I think this is a really good way of doing it, because a lot of these topics are like closely intertwined or relate to each other, and it kind of feels like mind mapping, right? Like making connections where you didn't know there were connections. And I've also found that I had a few topics or questions from my committee that I wasn't really sure how they fit into the larger categories, but once I did some more studying, I already kind of like pieced together like, oh, this is what they meant by this, therefore like it's relevant to this larger topic. And I thought that was like pretty helpful for making connections like that. So yeah, I'm basically creating a very large study guide on Notion, so just reading stuff, taking notes, adding in figures, and eventually I want to shift to studying where I have a whiteboard and like drawing these things out for different questions, like draw the major like ocean gyres or circulation patterns or the conveyor belts. I know a huge portion of the exam is going to be like drawing things or drawing vertical profiles for different nutrients or different elements. So even though I am like reading and taking notes, I want to be able to like practice drawing the things that they're going to ask me. So yeah, while studying, I'm definitely going to have a lot of days where I'm studying by myself, but I'm also going to mix in a lot of days where either my partner or my friend drills me with some questions and I have to like answer them, practice drawing things, so I can simulate how the actual exam is going to be. And another thing I'm doing is scheduling a practice comprehensive exam with 5 students in the different disciplines that I need that can drill me with questions basically. And yeah, I'm not sure like how long this whole thing will be, but maybe like an hour or an hour and a half of them just asking me questions to kind of do a mock comprehensive exam that is maybe low stress but good practice. And I think I'll do this about a week before my actual comprehensive exam date, so that I have some time in between to like reflect on the areas that need more work, or yeah, identify things that were like difficult for me. So yeah, that's how I'm studying. Okay, just real quick, if you guys are getting any value out of this video or you find it helpful, please give it a big like and hit the subscribe button. It really helps small creators like me. And yeah, I want to make sure that I'm actually providing you guys with things that are helpful and making the videos that you guys want to watch. So yeah, if you can do that real quick, I'd really appreciate you guys. Okay, so I wanted to end with some tips that I've received from committee members or just other students about comprehensive exams, so like studying or day of tips. So almost every single of my committee members said that while I'm studying, if I had any questions, to not hesitate to reach out to them. They're there to help. They're there to support me while I'm studying and preparing for this like very stressful exam. So definitely reach out to your committee or just like ask another student for help if you get to a topic that you don't know as well as others, or maybe you're really struggling with. Don't let that remain a muddy point. Go ask someone for help to clear it up. Yeah, I guess while studying, they also said for like older course material, review the lectures, ask some questions, and take the practice exams. Or look at your previous midterms and finals and review those to get an idea for like what sort of questions might be asked about the topic. How might they ask a question like that? Which questions were important enough to make it on the midterm and final, and really make sure that you're able to answer those. So for the day of, one of my committee members gave a TED Talk, and she said that that was the most stressful talk of her life to date, and the advice that she received before that was to do push-ups and jumping jacks in the like back room. So that's what she did, and she said kind of do something similar, whether it's like running around the building, breathing, or like meditating right before your exam to kind of get yourself out of your head, because being in your head in this high stressful situation is how you like freeze up or just break down. So try to do something to get yourself out of your head right before. This could just like help you calm down a little bit before your exam. Another really good tip that I got is if you're asked a question, list as many things as you can. So if you're asked like, what are the adaptations for living in oxygen minimum zones? Really list as many things as you can. Talk about it as much as you can, because the more you talk, the less time they have for questions. And they will cut you off like right in the middle of it and say, okay, thanks, that's enough. And that's just because you've answered that question. It was a satisfying answer, and they just want to move on to see what else you know. They also said that it is completely okay to ask for a break if you're feeling like exhausted, or if you're feeling really stressed during the exam, or tired or overwhelmed. It's definitely okay to just ask for like a little break. So don't be afraid to do that if you feel like you need it. Everyone says you're not going to feel good after, and that is completely normal. Everyone I've talked to does not feel good after. You are just in like the most stressful thing that when it's done and you're like waiting to hear whether or not you passed, you're like freaking out, but also like super relieved, because I was just so much like built up pressure that I think maybe you even like cry a little. I know one of my committee members was telling me that after the exam, his partner was outside and he just told her like, oh, I don't think I passed, but he passed, and all of these people that didn't feel great after it passed. So you'll pass too, because you're watching this video and you know what to expect, you know how to study, and some tips. Another thing is to take some time off after your exam to just decompress a little. You did a lot of studying, and you definitely deserve a nice break and a little celebration after this, because it's like a huge achievement. It's something you have to do, and people pass anyway, but it's very unpleasant, and you did a good job, so take some time off. And also, while you're studying, I think it's really important that you practice not only like putting a lot of information into your head, but being able to talk about it, right? So it's not only enough to just have a list of questions and write down your answers. Like, that is good practice, but you need to practice talking about it in front of other people, even if it's just one person. I mean, hey, even if you just like talk to a camera or are talking to an invisible audience, it's still better practice than never doing it. You know, you really need to practice talking about it, drawing the things, because that's how you're going to have to answer questions on the exam. You can't just do it all in your head, and you're going to be very stressed, so it's going to be much easier if you've practiced talking about it beforehand. It's like giving a talk, you know, right? If you just gave a talk without actually presenting it out loud in front of someone or to yourself in the mirror a few times, then it's going to be much rougher doing that for the first time in front of an audience. Yeah, practice for the exam, practice talking about it, and also schedule a pre-comps with some friends or even family to ask you those topics that you might expect on your exam. Other students have also gone through this or will be going through this, so I'm sure other grad students would be more than willing to help you out with yours. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching this far into the video. If you're interested in seeing how I'm studying, feel free to watch my study with me videos. I'll be making these while I'm studying because I think they're fun, and it also forces me to be more focused during my study sessions because I know that you guys are also studying with me and watching them. So yeah, it helps me not mess around to study to some of these study with me videos. Happy studying. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.